tonight, if you have the scriptures with you, open with me to the book of James. James chapter 1. When the Apostle Peter talks about, we have actually several writers in the New Testament, but in the New Testament we have Paul, who wrote most of the letters in the New Testament, and we have Peter, who wrote some, and Peter is the one who actually kind of emphasizes the inspiration of the Scriptures, and he talks about Paul's writing specifically, and he said sometimes Paul writes letters that are very difficult to understand. So that's true, but I think that James is probably in the category, I don't know, maybe he didn't have James at that time, but Paul certainly accused him of being dissimulated by the followers of James. Okay, so we have this issue that sometimes the book of James is looked on and said, ooh, how does that all fit in? But it is a great book, and it's certainly a book that helps us in our everyday life. And tonight we're actually going to do a very short portion of it. And since the language is a little complex, because we use a lot of the words in a different fashion, and some of the words we don't use anymore, we're actually going to spend our first few moments actually going through and seeing what we understand and coming to a clear understanding of the words so that we can then kind of put together James' thoughts. But on this one he says, my brethren, this is in chapter 1, verse 1, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let them ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. So, as we look at these verse, actually starting with verse 2 is where I started the reading, James is calling our attention to the fact that there's a value to our temptations. And we think, does that sound right? That there's value to our temptations. So that's the reason we need to go through these words and figure out exactly what they mean. If we go through the words, then we'll kind of try to work together to get the meaning of this verses 3, 4, and 5. Okay. First of all, let's look at some of the words that we have. And I think the first one we need to look at is when he says count it. He counted all joy. Okay, when you count something, what do you think about when somebody says count it? What comes through your head? Counting in what way? Counting your blessings, like counting 1, 2, 3. I had this, that, and the other. Okay, so counting like 1, 2, 3. That's what we often think of counting. Okay, what else do we think when somebody says count? Okay, consider. That would be our biblical vision if you have had it. Okay, so consider, count is kind of it. Counting is enumerating or putting in order the things that happen. So counting has that sense. When we think it means to consider. Let's think about this. Okay, so think about it or think about it as something that's good. In this particular case, he says, I want you to count it as joy. Okay, that's the second word we want to look at. So counting means for you to consider or to think about, okay, or to consider or think that temptations should bring joy. But he starts in a different order than that. What do you understand when somebody says joy? What comes to your mind when we talk about joy? Usually when we talk about joy, there's some other words that we have linked to them as happy, right? And the Bible doesn't use the word happy, by the way. It's not in there. But joy is used. There are some other expressions used. But what do we mean by joy? Norman? peace of mind. Okay, that's one possibility. Okay, kind of a happiness. Okay. Can you have joy and not be happy? Yes. Okay, so we agree to that. Okay, what would be the opposite of joy? Because if happiness, if we said, what's the opposite of happiness? Okay, if joy would be depression. The opposite of joy would be depression. Okay, that's certainly understanding. So if we say happy, the opposite of happy is what? We usually say happy is sad. So we think happy, sad. Okay, but when we think of joy, the opposite is not really necessarily sad. It's more of a depressed mode. I'm just kind of like, it could be, it's having, just being down, basically. Okay, so joy would be this inner state that could be mentioned as peace. It could be an inner state of satisfaction, an inner peace of knowing why it's happening. Okay, so if you know the reason why you're doing it, it makes it a lot easier, and you go along with it in a good mood of a sort, okay? Because you realize, hey, this is going to be good. Like, I'll just give you one example on that one, and then we'll move on. For example, you decide that you're going to enter a race, okay? A marathon. You're going to do a 10-mile marathon, okay? How many think you could handle a 10-mile marathon at this time and space? Okay, maybe one here. Okay. So, if you decide you're going to go in a marathon and you want to get to the end, okay, we could all enter, okay, a marathon and get a few steps, right? Maybe a few hundred feet. But a 10-mile marathon is a pretty good marathon. Okay, so every day you decide you're going to get up and you go out, it's hot, it's cold, you go out and you run, okay? You run for 1 mile and you're tired, you're worn out. You really feel pretty tired, pretty worn out. But why do you the next day come back and run a mile plus another mile? Because you're thinking, I've got a 10-mile marathon and I want to win it. I want to go to the end. So because you have a purpose in mind, even though you're going through a certain amount of stress, pain, tiredness, you keep on because you have a reason behind it. So you would say you're worn out, but there's a joy. I made it a mile. Okay, you're just really hurting at this stage. I made it 2 miles. Okay, at the day you finally make the 10 miles, you're probably going to have cramps and all other things, but you say, but I made it. Okay, so joy doesn't always mean that it's a smooth road. Joy doesn't always mean that you're feeling so good, that you're happy. But joy is that inward peace of knowing the reason of why you're going there, or reason how you're going to get there. It's kind of that inward satisfaction, but it comes from it. Usually, happiness is something that comes from the outside. It's temporary. Joy is something that comes from the inside. I will not give up. And run out the clock. Okay, it's like the team who just decides, well, we're just going to bounce the ball because we've got a few minutes and we're tired. We've already won anyhow. So, right. Okay. So joy is a state of inward peace and satisfaction. Okay, to fall into something. What do you understand by fall in? If I said, I fell into, what would you think? Did you fall into the well? Did you fall into the cabinet? What did you fall into? But that's the word he uses. So what do we understand? What does that mean? Okay, so it could be a bad thing if you fall. Yeah, yes. For older people, falls are always a bummer. For young people, usually too. Okay, well, yeah, but what's So we've got a lot of different understanding what this fall into is. Okay. Okay, trip. So we're looking at it mostly as some accidental thing that happens. Okay, as falling into. Okay, That's kind of the... Okay, so there's the fall into a line, so that means that's actually a little different word, but there is a word that you fall into line. So everybody's marching at the same, so you fell into line. So you've heard the joke of little Johnny, and so his grandma watches him and says, wow, everybody's out of step except Johnny. Okay, so that is the sense of fall in. Okay, is fall in as he uses it here, and it's important we understand, is that he's basically using the word as to have or to encounter or to be affected by. Okay, it's actually more in the sense when you are affected by this issue, or when you encounter this particular issue. Okay, so you ran into this guy who was out of money and you helped him. Okay, we would say, we don't say we fell into this guy and he needed some money, so I helped him. But the word here is in the sense that you run into somebody or you meet somebody, you encounter somebody, or you encounter something. Okay? Now we're just looking at the words right now. We're getting to testing, right? We're getting into testing. So, fall into is to have, or when you have a temptation, or when you encounter a temptation, or when you are affected by a temptation. Okay, that's the sense of falling into at this page. Then he uses the word diverse. That means when you go under the water. Okay, different types. Okay, what else did you understand as diverse? Okay, a variety or several different kinds or various. Okay, it means all of those words. Okay, so diverse means several, different, many. They would all fit into that place. So let's look at what we've got so far. When you encounter, or consider it, okay, this inward state of joy, whenever you encounter or run into a variety or different kinds of temptations. Now, what do we think of when we talk about temptations? Man, that pizza was so tempting. Or that Frosty, it is so tempting. I'm already thinking about it. Okay? So what is temptation, by the way? Testing? Everybody agree that testing is a valid word there? A trial? Okay. A testing. So you've heard of medical trials. Okay, what does that mean? They're trying out something new on you and you're the guinea pig. Okay? They're trying it out. They're seeing if it works. It's a test to see if it works. And we call it a clinical trial. But what they're really doing is they're testing that vaccine, they're testing that medication to see if it works. It's a test to see, in this case, if it works, but it's a test. How many have taken tests in school? Ooh, we hate tests. But we don't hate tests. Okay? How many like to take tests? Some people do. Right? Okay? Some people like to take. Most people are not too big into tests. And yet, everybody has to take tests in school. You can't get around it. Right? If you're in 5th grade and you want to go to 6th grade, what have you got to do? You've got to pass the test. To pass it, you got to take it. Yeah. So, testing is something that we do. Okay, testing has several reasons. Okay, but when we think of temptation, usually we are thinking in a bad way, right? We use it in the sense of food, but even when we use food, we use it in a bad sense. Man, that is so tempting, and I can't have it. That's usually the sense that we're doing in it. That is so tempting, and I can't eat another bite. Okay, usually when we talk about tempting, we talk about in a bad sense. Okay, But testing is not a bad sense, okay? And so the way it's used here is actually as a test. Now, a little later on in the chapter, we're going to have a little different reference to it. But here we're talking about testing. What's this testing thing about? Okay, but that's what it's about. It's about finding out if you know, finding out if you're able. It's about finding out. For the teacher to find out, and it's for you to find out. Man, I know this. Okay, the teacher may already know that you don't know. Okay, but you do the test, and if you know it, the teacher knows because you got okay on the test, and you know because you made the test. I know it, and then you get your test back, and ooh, you flunked it. You didn't know it. See? So testing works to help us. You take out a car for a test drive. It's to check it out to see if it's something you like. So this is the sense it's using here is about having different tests. Okay. So we have also the word, okay, we're good at that point. Faith. The testing of your faith. We actually have the word of the trying of your faith. When you talk about trying, we talk about trying. Usually I'm trying to do something, right? We use the word in that way. I'm trying out this new shirt or this new suit or these new shoes. You're actually fitting them and trying to see if it fits you. Okay, so trying out kind of has that idea of testing, examining. It's kind of the same idea as the previous one. Okay, when we talk about trying your faith or testing, trying out your faith, what do you think about when we talk about faith? Okay, I hope you're putting all these things in because I'm going to ask us to put together, like in our English, what this means in a few minutes here. Okay, so what is this faith about? Try to explain to me what faith is. So, when we say trust, because that is certainly a synonym, it covers that. So, how would you define trust for us, to kind of understand that word a little bit better? So we have people that we trust, we have people we don't trust. What does that? But we have faith in people. Okay, so trust is your ability to know or to feel that they will come through on whatever you say, whatever they say, rather. Okay. Okay, faith is having hope. Okay. Like the expectation, I have the hope, or I have the faith that it's going to happen in that sense. That it's so faith in the sense that it's a desire that it go my way. So I have faith this is going to turn out okay. I have faith I'm going to get to the end of my journey. So it's kind of like the hope that I get there, okay? Any other thinking on the faith thing? Faith is used a lot in the Bible, okay? So a lot of times when we talk about faith, we use the word believe too, right? Believe, faith, hope. Okay. So basically what is believe? Believe is basically when I accept, or I think, or I accept, I would say it more as accept. I accept something you said. Okay, I believe. So we believe a person because they made a statement, and I think it's true, so I accept it. Okay, we don't believe a person when they say something we think is wrong. And I say, no, that's not right. So that's unbelief, okay? But belief is when a person, they say something. Basically, belief is linked to when more about words, about statements, about what people say. But trust is at a different level, actually a little different level, because trust has to do with the individual, okay, or the thing that I actually put my trust in. Okay, I trust that this person is honest and that they do tell the truth. That's the person's trust. We trust the person, but if we trust that they always speak the truth, then we believe what they say. Okay, we can believe things from people we don't trust. Does that make sense? Okay, and that often happens. Okay, so you got this guy who is a chronic liar. Okay, the chronic liar. And he comes and says, hey man, they got gasoline for half the price at the Shell. And you think, you're a liar. But you think, when we drove by there were cars lined all the way out on 27. I bet you they are. So you think you can't trust him. However, I think he might be right on this one. So you believe that particular statement because of the evidence that seemed to remind you. You get up there, it's only 75%. But anyway, he said, see, I told you he was a liar. But you went because you believed that particular statement because the evidence seemed that way. Okay, so faith is a combination of probably of all of these things. It's the person that you trust and you believe what they say. That is kind of summarized into faith. Okay, so that's kind of what we're getting there at. And then he talks about our faith worketh patience. What in the world are we working at here? When you think worketh. Juan worketh a lot. Okay? So we're basically saying Juan works a lot. Is that what he's saying here? Worketh? It's kind of an old English, but... Okay, brings about. Okay, working brings about, it develops something. Okay, so working is basically, it makes things happen. Okay, it brings about. It develops into that. Okay, so important to hold that one. That's very important. It worketh, it brings about. Okay, patience. What do we think about when somebody says patient? We say, that guy is so impatient when we're on the road. Actually, we don't usually say impatient. We say, that guy's a jerk. Right? We meant he is so impatient. He's honking his horn at us and whatever. Okay, so what do we think of when we think of patience? We talk about patience of Job. Patience could be waiting. Some people wait. Some people wait patiently, and some people don't wait patiently, right? Have you seen people that wait, but they're not very patient? Okay, they're not very. Okay, so exactly. Okay, so patient could be the deal of waiting, but it could be of waiting with a good waiting. I guess patient is a good waiting. Okay. Endurance. Okay, patience is kind of mixed with endurance, okay, and certainly that's what he's at this particular one is what he's working at, is that patience is kind of you have patience, you have that cool, okay, you don't get up in the air, and because of that, it's going to happen, so you just hang in there. So patience in a sense is a result that it's going to happen. It may not happen right now, but it's going to happen, so let's just hang in here. It is going to happen. Okay, so patience kind of has the aspect that we know that we're going to pull it off. Okay, then he says, let patience. So when we say, that means allow or permit patience. Okay, so he says, it works patience, now permit patience. That's kind of a strange statement. We'll get there in a minute. Okay? Let patience or allow it to have its perfect work. When somebody says that's a perfect work, what do you think of? When your mom says to you, it's a perfect work, what would you think? Your schoolwork. You just turned it in to her. And she said, that is a perfect, we don't usually say work, we say a perfect job. What would that mean? That you missed about half of it? Not really. Okay, so a perfect work basically is that it's good. Okay, it's good. Perfect work is it's a job. It's a job done. Okay, it's a completed job. Okay, so your dad says, "Go mow the grass," and you come in and said, "I'm done," and that would basically say, "I've completed the work. I've completed the work. It's done." And your dad would say, "Is it done?" "Oh yes, it's done. It's you've perfected that work. You've finished it. It's done. It's complete." Okay, so the perfect work means that. And then it talks about being perfect. That you might be perfect. When you think about you being perfect, how many here think of themselves as being perfect? Okay. So when James uses the word perfect, what is he referring to? I don't know. I'm just looking at the English. I didn't go to the original. But I doubt that it's the same word, but it may be. Okay, so perfect, there is a sense in which it's mature, okay? And he goes on to point that out a little bit later, but fully developed, okay? It's fully developed. Basically, maturity means it's fully developed. Yeah, I think that probably carries a little different scenario. The perfect here is referring more to being fully developed, okay? So you have a baby has all the parts, okay? Has fingers, has everything. So they're complete, and yet they're not perfect. They're not mature, okay? It'll take them a few years. It'll take them 18 years plus to grow up to where they're full maturity, but they have all the parts. And he goes on to say, and be entire. Okay, entire. What does that word mean? Be perfect and entire. Okay, that probably carries more the weight of not missing any parts. Okay, so you could be a mature person and be missing 2 fingers. Are you whole? Not necessarily. You're missing 2 fingers, right? Okay, you're mature. You lost all your hair. You know, are you? Well, you're kind of not complete the way with all the parts. Okay, you lost the leg. Well, you may mature, but you're missing. Okay, you don't have all the parts. So here he's doing all of those things. So let's read back through the text now, slowly, and think about all the words that we've used. Okay, and then we'll give opportunity for different people to summarize it in your own thinking, what it means to you. Okay, so here we go. Brethren, count it all joy when you fall into divers temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. Let patience have her perfect work, that ye may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. Okay, who wants to summarize it for us? You can't go wrong on this. Just kind of put it together the way you think about it, and the words we've talked about, try to say it in your words. Okay, so did you say glad was the word you used? Thankful. Okay, be thankful for the hard times you go through because they help you grow to be the person that you need to be, or God wants you to be, something like that. Okay, somebody have another resume on it. Anything you have to add to that summary there? Okay, it's not the end. Okay, so you're going through difficult times, but it's not the end. Okay. But there is something that's going to come out of it, right? So the idea of this one is that something is going to come out. I'm going through this rough, I'm sitting here doing this crazy test. But when I finish, I'm going to the next grade. Or when I finish, I'm going to get this job. Okay, so we're thinking about it's tough right now. It's difficult, but it's going. I'm running and man, my muscles are hurting and I'm cramping, but I'm going to make it to the end of this marathon, and I'm going to be one of the winners. Okay, so it has that sense. Okay, now let's look at the text. Does everybody kind of agree that that's what you got out of it? Okay, so you're going to go through different tests. And they may be different, a lot of different ones. You go through a lot of different tests, and these tests, they're really testing your faith. It's really about testing what you really believe and who you trust. And these tests, as they perfect, as you pass the test, it makes you more confident, makes you more persistent, it gives you patience, because you know now. See, that's what the test does. You go through, I did third grade. I passed that, man. Flying colors. I got it all right. Okay, so you're confident now because you know that you passed the test. Now you're in fourth grade working to the next one, but so you have these tests in your life, and they help you to realize, hey, what I learned, what I thought, what I believed, it's about our faith, what I believed really works. I remember my mom used to say, when we had this, our first time when all the kids got together after we were grown, okay, we'd been away for a good while, and said, boy, what was your biggest take from what God had done? And here's what she said. She said, when I was a young lady, I believed that what God said in the Bible about the family was right. But she said, now, after the years of experience, I can say that by experience, I know that what God said is right. Does that make sense? So here I go through this information. Yes, this sounds right. I accept this as being truth. Then you go out and you check it out. You're tested. And as you check it out, wow, it works. It really does work. It really does work. So what does that do? It boosts your faith, is what it's really doing. But it makes you more confident. It makes you persevere because you say, I know that this works. I'm going to hang in here. Okay, I'm going to keep going. And so that is your persistence, or that's your patience, that's your endurance, so that you will come to full development, so that you'll be mature, so that your faith will be a mature faith. You will be mature in your faith. So that's kind of what it's about. Okay, so let's go back, and it's about time for us to finish here. He gives us a reason for us to always be joyful, even though we're having difficulties. Why should we be joyful when we're having difficulties? What's the reason? It's the reason behind it, because that's what he's dealing with here first off, before he goes into the rest of it. Why should you be joyful, have this peace and serenity when you're going through trials? Just because you think it's cool? Or is there another reason? Why should we hang in there? What gives us the hope to hang in there? Because there's going to be a positive benefit at the end. Okay, let me give you an example. I think it kind of is. So you have this diamond ring. Okay? So you're trying to hide it. It's for your girlfriend or whatever, and she's around, so you're trying to hide it. So you put it in this paper bag. Dumb, but you put it in a paper bag. And you come back, and the paper bag's gone, and the ring's gone, and you think, oh my Lord, what happened to the ring? And so you don't want to tell your girlfriend, but did you see this bag? It's got a ring. Did you see this bag? And somebody says, what, the bag that was on the bathroom cabinet? Yeah, that's the one. Oh, I threw it in the garbage. In the kitchen garbage. And I already carried it out. I already dumped it. It got full and I dumped it. I hope the garbage truck hadn't come. So you run out to the deal. So she's already told you that it was the bag. She picked it up at the place you put it. So if it was that bag, it's got the ring in it. What do you do to the garbage? How many go out and rummage through all your garbage? Hey, you pull the bag out and you start through it. Probably you just dump the whole doggone thing out and you start rummaging through it, looking for the piece of paper that's got the ring in it. Now, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't do it at all. You would think, I'll never do that. You do when the ring's inside of it, right? And you go in there with gusto. You go in there with this anticipation because you know you're going to find it, okay? So you go in there with that expectation. So you may not find it right off the bat, but you keep looking till you find it. Okay, so that's a good example, real life example. So the reason that we can have joy, and we have to think it is, remember this, and it's based on our faith. Do we trust with God? Do we trust God? That's the first question we have to figure out first. Do we trust God? Is he trustworthy? Can we trust him? Okay. Until you figure that out, the rest of this doesn't make sense. Okay, so you have to figure out if you trust God or not. To some degree. Certainly, our faith is not tested, okay, until we're put in the situation where it has to be. So we have tests. Why would God allow our faith to be tested? Doesn't God already know? Why would God test our faith? Mainly for us to know, okay? But it's more than that, actually involves. It wasn't only for, let's talk about when Abraham took his son up to sacrifice him, it said it wasn't only for him, for his faith, it was imputed, his faith was imputed to him as righteousness, but it wasn't only for Abraham, but it was for us to know about Abraham's faith, that we should have it too. Okay, so the testing of our faith is broad. It not only helps us to realize, hey, that we're moving in the right direction, it does work. The more that we test the faith, the more we realize that it works, the more confident we become to continue to trust. Okay, so it's kind of like the person, God is kind of that way. Okay, let me just, don't have a lot of time, but I think this is an important diversion here. Okay, so you walk up, you're in an airport, you're somewhere, and you've got all these bags, and it's got pretty good content in it. And so there's this guy sitting right beside you, and it's like a guy like Pastor Joe, and he's sitting there, and you think, man, I got to go to the bathroom bad. I can't haul all this stuff into the bathroom. And I think, I don't know him from Adam. I've never seen him before. Okay, would you leave your money bag with him? Would you? You'd never seen him before? How many would be? But they're playing into my description. They never knew him before. Okay. Now here's the case. Listen out. He might be the most honest person in the entire world, but he might be the most dishonest person in the whole world, right? But I don't really know. So can I really put my faith and leave my things with him? Probably not. But we're talking about his character, his honesty. So it could be the most honest person in the world and you not trust him because you don't know him. So here's the case. Our trust really grows as we know the person. So it usually starts with something little. We give them a little bit. Hey, they came through. We give them something a little bit, they come through. Every time that something is given to them, entrusted to them to take care of, it always comes through. What does that do? They say, yeah, that person, you can trust them, buddy. Somebody says, you can trust them. Okay, so a lot of times the person says, I don't really know. I tell you, I know. You can trust him. I mean, I would leave my billfold with him. The person says, well, you would? If you trust the person that's speaking, and say, okay, well, he's the man. Okay, so we trust. We trust by reference. We trust by our experience. Now, we might get to know a person and think, I mean, this guy is the best in the world. And you get ripped off, you get ripped off, you get ripped off. And pretty soon you think, I don't think so. I don't think you want to have any dealings with that guy. I thought he was good, but man, that won't work. Okay, so as we get to know, or our trust grows, or our trust goes down. Okay, a lot of people don't trust God. What's their problem? They probably don't know him. Right? They don't know him. So as we get to know God, and this is what this is all about, as we are testing, God says something, we test it out. God says it works. God tests, it works, it works, it works. That builds our confidence and our persistence. You can trust him. Okay, so our trust in God grows through this experience. It's God says it, we believe it, but in our experience, it actually makes us mature. Say, I know by experience now that God, what he says. Now, do I know about heaven yet? Have I ever seen heaven? Nope, I haven't. So that would mean that his writings are dependable, okay? So as we get to know him, and a lot of people that have gone in to discredit him oftentimes wound up believing because this is too good to be true. And then they figured out that it really works. Okay, so very, very important. So why is our faith? Because it says that without faith, it's impossible to please God. Here's the issue. Can you really have a good love relation with somebody that you don't trust? No way. You're always going to be worried. You're always going to be on pins and needles. It's just not going to work. So to have a good relationship with God, there has to be a trust factor involved in that. Okay? And so that's the reason God says without faith it's impossible to please God. You have to trust God. That you have to trust God. Because if you don't, you're going to do it your way. If you don't, you're going to trust something else. So this chapter is all about have joy, but that's if you know God. Okay? So if you don't know God yet, here's what I'm saying to you. You need to look into Him. You need to look into His Word. Look into what the Bible talks about God. Look into people that trust God and see how their life is. Because I think as we examine the Word and examine what God does and what He says and how people have been changed by it, that would certainly help us to envision and say, hey, maybe we at least have to seriously look at it. Okay? So, but you who have already trusted Christ realize that He is good and He is this God, that He does do it when trials come in your life. You just need to say, okay, how would God want me to do this? It's going to work. We just have to, you give me guidance. I trust you on this one. It's going to work out the way. It's tough, but it's getting me to where I need to be. Okay, it's tough, but it's going to get me where I need to be. So we can go in not with maybe happiness. When Christ was the Bible says that Christ had joy because of the results he knew were going to come as a result. So he's in the garden sweating blood. That's not happy. But he had joy because he knew his joy was that it was going to work out and that you were going to become his friend because he went through that trial. Does that make sense to us? Okay, so in our life, we need to double think. Okay. That he really is looking out for us. That we can really trust him. And so that helps us when we're going through tough times to be able to say, but God, I know that I can trust you. I'm going to walk through this. I don't see the end. I don't see it. I don't see that diamond yet, but I know that it's out there. So we're going to keep looking and we're going to hang in there because I know that diamond's there. So that's what he's saying. God will bring us to maturity. And what he's really talking about is this mature relationship with God. I mean, you have a very, very close relationship. The Bible says when we become one with God, actually that close. So that's pretty fantastic, right? So are you going through troubles? Probably. Did you have some issues today? Probably. Did you get lost on your way? Probably. Did you have something go wrong? Probably. But you know what? If we look at it from God's perspective, it will help us as we trust God. We see God will help us through, and that'll make us a little stronger for the next one. God starts us out with little things. It's like a kindergarten teacher doesn't give trigonometry to the first day students. She starts out with maybe, some little activity, number one, and you play one. But by the time he gets to 18 or 19 years, he can do trig, and man, he's way beyond that, but it started here. So God starts us out with baby steps, very baby steps, and as we get better at it, God will allow the test to be bigger. You don't give kindergarten tests to college seniors, but you don't give college tests to kindergartens. So God's got that figured out, believe it or not. And so He isn't going to give you college test work. So if you get a test, you can be pretty sure that it's on your level. Stick with it. If you failed it, go back, because you'll get to do it again. Isn't that the way teachers do? You didn't get it right the first time you got it, so she could review it again. Okay, you test it again. You still didn't get it right. You can review it again. Oh, on the third or fourth or fifth time you get it right. That's what God wants. He just wants you to get it right. Okay, so I hope that's encouragement to you. And I hope that it will help you when you have a problem this week, any difficulty whatsoever. Just say, God, thank you for testing my faith. I know it's on my level. You didn't test me beyond my level, so help me to trust you and do what's right, and we will get through this. You will get me through this. I know it's going to work. Okay? Very good. And you're going to have some tests this week. The one thing I know for sure, you're going to have some tests. Okay, very good. Okay. Pastor, I'll let you write them down. You hear better than I do. Okay. So let's go for our prayer requests. Do we have any special prayer requests before we break up to pray? Does anybody have a prayer request they would like to bring before? First to pray together. Today is Rodrigo's 35th birthday, and we could sing happy birthday to him. Yes, he's getting to be an old man. A young man. Okay, we were happy for having him. We've kind of been celebrating all day. We're going to celebrate when we go home. Okay, let's sing happy birthday to him. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. God bless you. Okay, we'll break up. The ladies can come to the front. The men will go back to the foyer. And your other requests. Tonight we're praying for the Wounds family. Okay, he's got a trip scheduled in October. They're in the U.S. right now, taking care of her parents. But he's got a trip planned to Nepal in October. So let's be praying for them, that God will help them with taking care of their parents and working out things here in the U.S.